ended up giving this one 4 stars. Wow. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with all the books that I read for the Believathon. So it is officially December. It has been for like, I don't even know when you're going to see this, like a week probably. But it's time to wrap up everything that I read in November. Now, if you've been watching me for at least the last month, you will know that I participated in the Believathon, which is the middle grade and children's readathon that Gavin here on BookTube did, so I will definitely leave his channel linked down below. He's great. He's the reason like I've actually started reading a lot more middle grade. My husband actually got involved in this, and like his goal was to read 12 books this year, and he read like 5 last month. So like, y'all helping me, so I appreciate that. But yeah, so make sure you check him out because he's got a lot of really cool, you know, he's just awesome. Like, he's just the quirkiest dude, and I love it. I will also leave linked down below my TBR so you can see kind of what I actually ended up doing versus what I planned, as well as all 4 vlogs. I vlogged the entire month. It was quite a lot. I had a lot happening, but it was really fun, and I think I'm vlogged out for a while, but it was really fun. So if you want to look at those, they will be more in-depth thoughts, kind of in-the-moment thoughts of everything that I ended up reading. I'm trying not to, like, I made notes so I don't think I'll forget anything that I thought, but just in case, those will be more in-depth thoughts. So I will leave all of that linked below if you want to check it out. Overall, I had a pretty good reading month. I read 7 books total. There were 11 prompts, including the group book, and I was able to make a couple, like, I think there's 3 prompts that I didn't do minus the group book because I didn't read the group book. I was able to make them work for some of the other books that I ended up reading, so that sounds awesome to me. And then I also didn't read anything below a 4 or a 5 star. Like, that's all I gave last month. So it was a pretty good reading month, if I do say so myself. I think I ended up finding a new favorite, possibly my favorite of the year. We'll see once I go through everything. But I'm just going to go into a quick what I ended up reading, what they were for, and my thoughts on them. So the first book that I ended up completing was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Are we shocked? I think not. And this one fulfilled the prompt of reading a seasonal book. I put my notes somewhere else, so I don't know what I thought. This is the one that made me really appreciate the age-old debate of movie Jenny versus book Jenny. I understand. And like, I understood when I read them the first time and watched the movies, like I understood, but I'd been so taken, like it's been such a long time since I read them, and I was really like only thinking about the movie in my head, that like this one I totally, like this is the one that made me like kind of remember why book Jenny is the ultimate best Jenny ever. This is definitely my favorite out of the series. It always has been. For some reason, the 6th one is just my favorite, and honestly, it might be because of Jenny. Like, I don't know, like that whole situation. It might be because it was after the 5th one, and I always had bad, like, memories with the 5th one, but this one still is my favorite. I love this one. I loved going back in the world, even though, like, there's a lot of sadness in this book, but it's really cool for me to read again all of those moments when Harry and Dumbledore are in Dumbledore's office and they are kind of going through who Voldemort was, who he was when he was Tom Riddle, his family, like all of that. And like that's always so interesting for me. I like loved those sections, and like we get them in the movie, but we don't get them as much, and there's a lot more in the book, obviously. So it was so much fun being able to like go back into like that part of it. So yeah, this was the first one that I finished, and it was just great. I gave it 5 stars. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. The next book that I completed was the only children's book on this list, and that is Where Is My Teddy by Jez Alborough. This was my favorite children's book. Like, I've talked about this multiple times. I could read this before I could actually read. But yeah, this one completed the prompt of being a childhood classic, but I was also able to use this for the prompt of having an animal character. So this one I ended up giving 4 stars. It's like a super short picture book about a bear and a boy that both lose their teddies and then meet in the woods and scare the crap out of each other. So like there's not a whole lot I can say about this. Like, it was cute. I loved it. It gave me so many memories. I will never not love this. I am biased towards this book. This book will be read to my children one day. Like, it was good. The next book that I completed was the last Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I read this for a book featuring magic, but I was also able to use this for, it was a book featuring myth and legends, because to me, like, the whole Deathly Hallows is like a myth and a legend. I gave this one 5 stars. Are we shocked? Because I feel like we shouldn't be at this point. It was really, really good. I'm so happy that I was able to reread this series. I'm really sad that this is it. So I will say one thing about this is at the very end when Harry and Dumbledore have their conversation, it's super info dumpy, but I've discovered that that's the kind of info dumpy that I like because it's at the end of the book and it's really describing everything that has happened in the book. So it's kind of like the resolution, if you will, but I forgot how much they talked about during that scene. And it was so great. I loved it. I just wanted to like reread it over and over and over again. Also the scene when Harry is in the forest before he goes to meet Voldemort. I don't care how many times I read this book, I will cry at that part. The movie not so much. Like, the movie is like 50% of the time I'll cry when that scene happens, but this book, oh, I was on my way to something for Chris. I was meeting a bunch of his coworkers and that scene happened when I was in the car, and I had to like contain myself because I was like, I can't just like walk up and be like, hello, people that Christopher works with. I'm his wife. I'm crying. It's fine. Why? It's because Harry Potter. Oh no, I've read it multiple times before. Like, no. Anyway, so I love this. I do need to get like a new copy because mine has had some issues, but I loved, like, I don't know what else to say. This entire series was great. I loved it. I gave all of them 5 stars. I'm really, really happy that I went back into this world. The next book after that I was able to finish was A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Bad Beginning. This is the very, very first one in this series. I buddy read this with Serena from A Wandering Mind, so like totally check her out because she's awesome. And we're buddy reading the second one this month, and I really, really hope that we continue with the entire series because I would love to reread this entire series. It's just fun. But I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I used this for the prompt of reading a childhood classic. I ended up reading this one in an entire afternoon. It was great. I loved it. I will say that if I was reading this for the first time right now, I wouldn't have liked it as much because it's definitely made for younger audiences. The writing is super simple. There's a lot of words that Lemony Snicket kind of describes. Like, if he uses a big word, he'll be like, that means this. Or if he uses like an idiom or a saying, he goes, now that doesn't actually mean what it sounds like it means. It actually means this. So like he describes a lot of stuff, and I don't remember if it's kind of like Harry Potter where like it grows up as the audience grows up. I feel like not like at all on the same level as Harry Potter, and I don't really remember because this one is so tiny, and like as they grow in the series, they grow in size, so we'll see. But like that is one thing that I don't think I would have liked right now if I was reading it for the first time, but because I was rereading it, I loved it. That's why I gave it 4 stars. And then like another thing about this book, which I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a second, I definitely did this in the vlogs too. The ending is awful. So like you obviously going into this, it's called A Series of Unfortunate Events. You know it's not going to be great, but like, and I don't remember if things just get worse and worse for the kids, but like the wedding at the end, like how is that legal? That cannot be okay. And yeah, it just drives me crazy every time I think about it. I just don't like that scene. And if that's like obviously good storytelling because like it has affected me so much for so long. And like I can't think of anything else in the series. Granted, I don't remember a lot of the series. I can't remember a lot that has made me that like, ugh, like jittery and grossed out. Anyway, I liked it. Regardless of what I've said, I liked it. 4 stars, was great. Really glad I'm reading the second one this month. Hopefully reading the rest of the series soon. The next book is, oh, beautiful. I loved this one so much. Like, I can really see this being my favorite book of the year. Like I said, we'll see, but I can really see that. And that is A School for Good and Evil, the first one in this series. I have 1 through 3. There are 5 out now, and I think the 6th one is either out or coming out very, very soon. Holy crap, this was good. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. This one I used for the prompt of read a creepy atmospheric read, but it also kind of works for one of the ones that I didn't read something for, which was read a book set in the past. There is so much about this book that I love. It is action-packed from like the first page, and I found it really interesting because the whole point of this, we have our two friends, Sophie and Agatha, who are taken by this mysterious thing. I think it's supposed to be like a shadow, but they're taken to the school for good and evil. One is supposed to be good, one is supposed to be evil. There is people who are taken every 4 years, I believe it is, to these schools, and they're taught to be like the, you know, good princesses of the fairy tale or the evil person of the fairy tale. And Sophie thinks that she's obviously going to be the princess. She is prepping her entire life for this. She has waited, and Agatha just wants to like be with her friend and like be left alone, but they are taken. And Sophie is actually sent to the school for evil, and Agatha is actually sent to the school for good. And the whole time they're just trying to like get back to each other and hopefully fix this problem. Now, for me, Sophie is super vain. She only thinks about herself. She claims that Agatha is her best friend, but there's just like, from page 1, I could tell that Sophie was like, obviously I knew what this book was about, but like I could tell, oh yeah, she's definitely evil and like acts evil and is super vain and whatever. And Agatha is more of a complicated character because she is not the stereotypical cut and dry cookie cutter beautiful princess. And that is what they believe being a princess is. So it toys with the themes. There's a little bit of feminism in this book, but not a whole lot. But it really toys with themes of like good versus evil, what makes good, what makes evil. There is this line that I read in my vlog, but I'm gonna read it again. It's near the very, very end, and it doesn't spoil anything like at all, but it's just like chef's kiss beautiful. So this is a conversation between Sophie and Agatha near the very, very end, and it says, "I don't want to be evil," Sophie panted through sobs. "You're not evil, Sophie," Agatha whispered. "You're human." Yes. So like this book is so good. There's also this beautiful moment where Agatha is with the teacher, and the teacher is like, you know, what do you want? Why don't you think that you're going to be good? And she's like, I'm not beautiful. And she's like, oh, don't worry, I got you. And she like brings in all these people to like prim her and make her pretty, and she like walks through the castle and thinks that she's like this totally different person, and everyone looks at her kind of differently, and she gets back to her room and realizes that the teacher hasn't done anything to her, it's just the way that she is standing. So she was beautiful all along, and it was like the inside kind of beauty, and that is a message that like is one of the most amazing things about this book. Like that is my favorite scene in this entire book. It was just great because the teacher was even like, girl, calm down, I got you. And it was all about how she carried herself, not because she wasn't beautiful. It was because she didn't have the confidence. And it was so good. So I loved that so much. So it definitely toys with that like beauty. And I will say, one thing that annoyed me about the end, but it didn't annoy me too much, obviously, because I still gave it 5 stars, but it was confusing. Like, I had to read the synopsis of book 2 to really kind of figure out what happened. So, like, all he needed to do was add, like, 3 words, maybe a sentence. Like, it didn't need a long, drawn-out explanation. It just needed, like, very simple things. And I don't know if that was supposed to be like a super big cliffhanger so that you would pick up the second one, but I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. But I still loved it. 5 stars. It's amazing. I can't wait to read the second one. I don't think I'm going to get to it this month, but definitely in January. So, loved it. The next book that I ended up finishing was Molly Warner's School Reporter, and this is by Dan Kilday. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I love this one a lot. I used this for the prompt of real world issues, and it deals a lot with journalism, news, how to be a good journalist, how to not be partisan, like things like that. I will say that, I've mentioned this before, but the author is family, so I'm a little bit biased on this, but he comes from news, as do I, so it was really, really interesting getting his take on it. And I will say it takes a while to get into, at least it did for me. The plot really didn't start until about chapter 5 or 6, so he had to take all that time to kind of introduce the story, but also introduce like what news was, kind of explain it as Molly is learning it. So I totally understand that. And in the author note at the very, very beginning, it says like the whole purpose was to entertain and educate. So he definitely did that. But I still really, really enjoyed this. I took this with me to my parents for Thanksgiving, and I read the first little bit over like a course of like 2 weeks, and then I read the last half in like an hour. So it's super short. I suggest reading it in 1 or 2 sittings because you definitely can, but there are some things that I think at the beginning, like there's a whole plot with like a whodunit, and I didn't guess who it was at all. I suggest reading it in a couple sittings, 1 or 2 days back to back, so that you don't have any like long gaps in between, because it is such a short, simple story that I feel like you definitely need to do it. So like don't do what I do, basically. It's really good for exactly what he wanted, which was a middle grade book to teach younger kids about news and reporting. So like props, because that is exactly what he did here. And I think this would be super educational for a lot of kids who maybe one day want to be journalists or news reporters or, you know, stuff like that. And the very last book that I finished in the month of November was Lilly and Duncan by Donna Gebhardt. This one I used for the prompt of friendship, I think? Yes, with a strong sense of friendship, but they're like, it was like a mess friendship because like they weren't friends for a lot of the time. So this follows 2 people, Lilly and Duncan. Lilly is transgender and Duncan has bipolar disorder, and Duncan is new in town, and Lilly is not out to anybody except for her family and her best friend. So Duncan comes to town and Lilly gets bullied a lot by the basketball team, and Duncan basically has never been popular, and the popular kids kind of pick him up because he's so tall, so they assume that he can play basketball. So like he and Lilly don't hang out very often, especially not at school because he's with all the basketball players. And so like that's why I say their friendship is iffy, because like they meet at the very beginning of the book, and then like near the end it's kind of like reconcile a little bit. So I just found it really, really interesting because there's a lot of hard topics in this book, obviously with our 2 main characters. Out of the 2 plot lines, I was there for Lily's plot line. His plot line was interesting, and I liked how it ended and the very, very end and everything like wrapped up, but like anytime it was his turn, it stressed me out. This is also told in dual perspectives from the 2 of them, which I found really interesting. And I started this on audiobook and then I ended up finishing it just physically, but there was 2 separate narrators, so that was, I liked that a lot because it gave it that extra, you know, push, that extra realness to it. And it was also interesting because you would get both of their perspectives on the same situation. So like, I liked that a lot. I liked how it was written. I think that was really well done for the story that she was trying to tell. I really, really enjoyed this. I would say this is for the higher end of middle grade, so this takes place in 8th grade. Like, it didn't feel like I was reading middle grade. It felt like I was reading just a good book. Like, that's kind of all I can think about. This is one that definitely goes over like multiple age groups, so I loved this one so much. That's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And if you read this, the ending with the dad, I broke. It was beautiful and pure, and I loved it. So those are the books that I ended up reading this month, including the Teddy book, which is too big, so I'm just gonna not pick them up. I had a really good reading month. I am so glad that I participated in this, and I hope this becomes a yearly thing because I will definitely be doing that next year. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I hope if you want to, the vlogs, like I said, will be down below if you want to see my life for a month. I don't even know if it's interesting. Let me know what your favorite book was in the month of November if you participated in the Believathon, or if not, I would love to know what your favorite read was. Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to be part of this awesome growing family, and I will see you guys in my next video.